Hi there, I'm Senator Rebecca White, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about S.17, which is the Sheriff Reform Bill, which is currently in Senate Government Operations. If you've been following the news here in Vermont, you probably have seen countless stories of what I would qualify as bad behavior by sheriffs. That includes assaulting someone under their custody, stalking someone who is a victim on social media, fraud, and giving bonuses. And these are all different situations. Giving bonuses to employees, hiring family and romantic partners, and some other unfortunate situations. We're lucky in the fact that Windsor County has largely been spared from that controversy, but when you look at Addison County, for example, they have some very serious challenges when it comes to accountability for their sheriff department. So the bill, in partnership with the Sheriff's Association, looks to address some of the lack of accountability that exists right now for our sheriffs. So where sheriffs sit in kind of the public safety landscape in Vermont is really unique. It's kind of a Vermont-made situation where we have county-based sheriffs who are elected. Then we have the state police, which serve communities that might not have a municipal policing force through contract. And then we have municipal public safety. So that would be like the Hartford Police. Sheriffs operate in different ways throughout the state and also serve very different sized populations throughout the state. So what the bill envisions is looking at how we can hold our sheriffs accountable by setting up standards so that there's a statewide expectation that we have on the things that our sheriffs do. For example, you don't need to be a police officer. You don't need to have public safety related credentials currently to be a sheriff, which is a little counterintuitive. And it's very difficult to remove a sheriff from office if they do have behavior that is not something we would want to see in that kind of position. So some of those things I listed at the beginning. And we also don't have a very good structure for payment for our sheriffs. So one piece in the bill that I'm really proud of is currently sheriffs charge domestic abuse folks who are victims of domestic abuse when they need to go to a property to collect their items, or the person who is the assailant, alleged assailant, needs to go to collect things from a home. The sheriff will charge the person who, they will charge the victim for that service, which means I don't like that. I don't think domestic violence victims should have to pay to have protection when someone is coming in and collecting their goods from their home. However, so that's one piece of the bill that we heard from the Vermont Network Against Domestic Violence that they support. We also don't have a very clear way of doing court-based security with our sheriffs. So having a statewide contract so that the courts are properly staffed with public safety officials, ideally our sheriffs. The bill also looks at the payment structure for sheriffs. So they currently can take 5% above a contract that they get. They can have an administrative fee. And what we've seen in some places, and not all, is that that fee will be used to give bonuses and to supplement salary, when in reality it would probably be better used for things that are associated with the office themselves, so purchase of vehicles, uniforms, trainings. Those are the kind of things that we would, I think, as a state, like to see our money go towards, because it sets up a bad incentive when people are policing or writing tickets because they know that they get an additional fee on top of that to supplement their salary. So we've worked really closely with the Sheriff's Association because they also want a top-tier public safety force, and they do not want to see folks who have that bad behavior continue in the profession. So we've been working closely with them. And locally for Windsor County, you know, I've spoken with Ryan Palmer, who's our local sheriff, and he's brand new to the role as of February. So something that I think motivates this bill is we've had a really big turnover in our sheriffs statewide. I believe there's 8 folks who are new to the role out of 14 counties. So this feels like a great opportunity to just have a fresh start, and we can make bold change to actually reflect what we want to see in our public safety professionals. And then the last thing I'll say is this bill, S.17, also had a counterpart with a constitutional amendment, because our sheriffs are actually constitutional officers. So anything that we change, you really do have to change the Vermont Constitution. So we found that we couldn't quite do some of the changes we wanted to see without a constitutional amendment. But the barrier, like the work that it takes to do a constitutional amendment, is extensive. It has to be introduced, a constitutional amendment has to be introduced in the Senate side, has to pass the Senate, pass the House in a 2-year biennium, and then do it again the next session, and then it has to be voted on by the people. So we are trying to find solutions now that don't require a constitutional amendment at this point, because we've heard pretty loud and clear that the sheriffs, for example, in their association don't want to pursue a constitutional amendment at this point. So trying to find solutions that are legislative at this point. But you may ultimately see a need for a constitutional amendment to address some of the concerns that we've seen. So yeah, that's S.17. It's an exciting bill. It's been an interesting glimpse at what sheriffs do. I didn't really know what sheriffs did. I thought I knew, and then I was open to the world of public safety and what role our sheriffs play, both as public safety officials and kind of community players, because they have very interesting special roles in Vermont. I think we've come to recognize that when you have power and kind of the power of public safety, that there should be a lot of accountability measures in place, both with how you can raise funds for your office and then the type of behavior that we find is appropriate. Because unfortunately, I think like any position where you have power, if you don't have checks, you're likely to see bad actors behave badly. Another thing that I haven't mentioned about the bill is that we were looking at if we could require people to be in their district. So one of the things we saw in another county, not Windsor, was a sheriff who was collecting a salary but not fulfilling contracts and also not living in the state. So you would usually prefer your sheriff to live in your county, or at least I would say be working in your county rather than in a different state. We were not able to change the location requirements for sheriffs in this bill, but that is something that we talked through. And it'll be likely voted out of government operations the week after this one. So during crossover week, which is kind of the last shot for a bill, if it doesn't make crossover, meaning it goes to the other body, either the House or the Senate, depending on where it started, then it fades for that session. And there's policy crossover, which is that week after town meeting, meaning if it's a bill that doesn't have money attached to it, it needs to be out. Or if it's a money bill, it would be the week after that.